Hey everyone. I've had a bunch of requests. All of the interviews I've been doing, the terminology is sort of confusing new people that are coming to the channel, people that are into typology but aren't really familiar with the OP system. And OP system is a little bit, even for me, like it took me about a year of watching YouTube videos and finally getting into the class to figure out what was going on and systematizing it. So I really just wanted to come out with an introductory video so people could maybe learn the system and jump into the interviews. And again, this is just really introductory. It's going to be, I'm going to do my best. But if you really want to go deeper in, it's a lot of consuming, a lot of videos. Go check out Dave Superpower's Objective Personality and sign up for the class at objectivepersonality.com if you want even more. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's start with a little bit of history. All of this stuff comes from Carl Jung. Now, Carl Jung designated, he never spoke about, a lot of the systems come and jump to conclusions and continue. But if you want to strictly think about what Jung was seeing, he was talking about 4 functions, just 4, and each one could be either introverted or extroverted. So he was talking about thinking, intuition, feeling, and sensing. Now, I don't want to dive too much into these functions, but I'll just talk generally on them. That sensing is your senses in the physical world and factual information that we have from the physical world. So, you know, the color of something, the way something sounds, how much, what's the series of events, things like this. The actual what, okay? NI is going to be the why, all right? Not NI, but intuition. Intuition is always going to be the why. It's going to be the patterns that come from the sensory. It's going to be the patterns that come from maybe even yourself in your own mind. So one is going to be seeing the forest. The other one's going to be seeing the trees. It's just an analogy. It's not really the way it works. Just general, okay? Then we've got thinking and feeling. A little bit mislabeled. Thinking isn't actually thinking. It's parsing. It's what uses the logic. All right. Everyone can use logic, but it's what uses the logic. All right. And feeling isn't really feeling. It's more values. Okay. Values based. So really in the interviews that you're going to be seeing is I'm going to be investigating people who have been typed by not only objective personality, but typed in order to examine their functions a little bit and get a better understanding of how these functions actually work. Now, the other thing that Jung specified was introverted versus extroverted. So each one of these functions can have introverted or extroverted. What he said was extroverted in general was objective, but specific, okay? What does that mean? It's specific to a certain moment in time or a certain circumstance or a certain frame of reference, okay? So just as I'm going to go into an actual cool example from one of his interviews. SE, for example, sensing is going to be specific to the now, what's going on around you, right? Not and nows from the past. You can also go into a memory and look at the sensory information from that memory. It'll just be a little more vague for you. SI is going to be more, so that's extroverted, objective and specific. SI is going to be universal and subjective. So it means only things that you saw or you're experiencing from your perspective and universal, okay? Which is also a little bit contradictory and hard to understand, but same thing with SI. So it's going to be your own senses, what you saw, right? And SE is also looking at what is around you, but it's looking objectively. What can everyone see? I'm going to go around here and try to get a 3D perspective, right? SI is going to be more focused on their subjective body, but the most general case, the most universal case. So I actually talked about this in an interview recently with Julia, and she's supposed to be lead SI, and I asked her about making a stew, and if she had and she made this perfect stew, what would you do next time? And so for her it was, oh, I would definitely want that recipe and to keep remaking that stew. I got to this, and this is anecdotal. This isn't something that all SI would be. And then I was thinking, well, for me as a lead SE, I would be thinking, well, you know, I would want to try a different stew. I would want to maybe change it up a bit. Even though it's not the perfect stew, I've already had the perfect stew. I want a new stew. I want something specific, right? Something specific. And SI is just looking for that same subjective, that same thing, that same universal best over again, sort of thing, right? And I'm going to do another example too, just so you guys can get the picture. TI is one that's talked about. We can do NI as well. So TI and TE. So TI is going to be subjective, what you think, right? But it's going to be universal. What you think is universal. So you're going to come to universal thoughts. Same things with intuitions. Universal concepts that are your concepts, but they're universal, right? Whereas NE and TE, move myself here. NE and TE are going to be looking for objective concepts in the moment, specific to now. So this concept is useful now. It's specific to now. I'm going to use it now, and it's not eternal. It's not, right? I'm going to have many of them, right? There's going to be many different ones that they could possibly use, and they'll just select one, right? They'll have a big toolkit of concepts. They'll pull one out. Same thing with thinking. They're going to be thinking universal thinking, tribe thinking, and we'll get into tribe versus self, that terminology really soon. And so they're going to be looking for this objective, but momentary, but specific, right? Specific to whatever is going on at the moment, right? And now this is not in no way proper definition. This is just a general understanding, a general NI understanding of how functions, introverted and extroverted, work with functions. And if you really want to know more, I really suggest, again, the classes and the interviews are going to help you understand these functions a lot better, as I learn and understand them as well. And other people are doing also great work in the community, so check them out. So OP comes along, and there are a few different systems. One system here, for example, the EJ, IJ, IP, EP, they mapped them, they mapped these systems. Well, before we go here, we'll talk about something else. Everyone has a dominant function, a function that they use the most, and then they have an auxiliary function. And this comes from Jung. Jung spoke about his auxiliary function. Now, Jung never specified what the auxiliary function is, just that it had to be one of these two orthogonal directions, right? It could never, if you're SE, you can't have an NI as an auxiliary function. It has to be either TE or FI, or if you're down here, either FE or TI, right? That's your auxiliary function. Now, Jung never said FE or TI, he just said F or T, okay? This is just something that was added later. It's something that's universally accepted. The other thing that wasn't universally accepted is that it has, this is something that Myers and Briggs did first, is that the let's take the same example, SE, you have to go as an introverted function as your second. So only these two. So you see where these big letters are on the screen? This is the limitation. You can never have two extroverted functions and two introverted functions. Now this comes from a quote of Jung that, in my opinion, it's misunderstood, the quote, but this is something that many people accept, that your auxiliary function has to be this. Now, it took a while in the academic community to get to that. The academic community was still accepting this, 32 types, basically. But Beebe came along, Professor Beebe, and he sort of confirmed what MBTI was saying and also put the academic community on board with this. And more recently, the academic community has even thrown away typology of this type in favor of Big Five, okay? So now, with that said, objective personality came in thinking Myers-Briggs was probably right. We're going to investigate it. We're going to type people. And through analysis and through figuring people out, they came to the realization, through the data, they came to the realization that the auxiliary function this is legal. These types are legal. And you'll see that all over the interviews. Whether you accept it or not, that's one of the purposes of the interviews, is to sort of see if this is actually a viable option, if this does exist, okay? Now the other thing, and now this is something that everyone else has sort of subtly picked up on in the typology community on YouTube at least, is some of these definitions, and these came directly from, why can't I remember his name? Tony Robbins. Okay, so Tony Robbins noticed the 4 human needs, and objective personality came along, and they're like, we're seeing this. There are these 4 human needs. We're seeing this. We're seeing the EPs. We're seeing the IJs. We're seeing the EJs and the IPs. And the only thing that defines this is what is your main function? What is your dominant function? So your dominant function is going to be the one that's most used. This here makes you an EP. If that's your dominant function, it makes you an IP. Okay, that's the way it works. And so what Tony Robbins did was what was matched to OP is that each one of these is going to come with a basic human need. Okay, and so you're going to have a dominant human need, and based on what your auxiliary function is, you're going to have an auxiliary human need. And these human needs have sort of bled over into the community. Everyone sort of accepted them without even crediting OP. It sort of crept into all the definitions. So these are pretty good. So the human need here is going to be of the EPs. They call them observers. These are perceiving functions. That's how Jung called them. Jung called these judgers. OP calls them deciders. Okay, so I put the OP terms here, D and O. This is the language that we're using currently in the interviews, if you want to know the language. So observers are the extroverted observers are going to be EPs. They're going to look for freedom. Okay, just generally, we're going to also investigate those more. OI are going to be looking for control. Okay, they're going to hate the chaos, but they're going to want the control. OEs are going to hate the control, but they're going to be looking for freedom. DEs are going to be looking for tribe validation. Okay, now this is the tribe decider. They're going to be looking for validation among people. Now this isn't always true, but this is the human need at least. They're going to be looking to, and that comes at the expense of self. They're going to be doing that and ignoring their self. And then the DIs are going to be looking for identity. They're going to be always trying to develop their identity, and that's going to come at the expense of tribe validation and tribe being happy with the IPs. So the IPs are going to get a lot of hate from the tribe because, I don't know about hate, but they're going to perceive it at least as hate, and it will be real for them because that's what they're doing. They're spending too much time on their identity, and they're ignoring the tribe, and that's why the tribe is coming out against them. And so then the tribe is going to be, the DEs are going to be spending too much time with the tribe, so the tribe won't come out against them, but they're going to be going against themselves, their own identity. They're going to be squashing their own identity, and they won't know who they are, and they will have a lack of confidence. They'll never feel good enough. And so that's that. And so human needs they found is that you always have 2 human needs. You have a major human need and a minor human need, and that's based on what your auxiliary function is. Okay, so you're going to have 2 human needs. One of them is going to be your major issue. The other thing that OP came up with is double deciding and double observing. Now, what all that means is if you're a decider, DI, you're going to automatically be a double observer. That means you're going to be balanced between these 2 functions. And same thing, if you're an observer, you're going to be balanced between your deciders. Now, that balance is really your superpower, okay? It's not your savior function. This is whatever you're really great at using, that's going to be your curse, okay? It's going to be your curse because you're going to be imbalanced there. Where you're going to be balanced is going to be your blessing. It's going to be what you're good at. So lead TI like myself is going, or any other decider, is going to be really good at balancing between observations. We're not going to get freaked out by things that don't match observations. We're not going to get freaked out by contradictions between 2 different observations. We're going to be able to piece together two different types of knowledge. This is the known, right? Known in the control, and the chaos in the unknown. And we're going to be able to go back and forth between the known and the unknown, and really it'll be a process. I actually explained it quite well in my interview with my 4-way interview with Otim, Chris, and Garrett, and all 3 of them are the same type. I would say check it out because it was well explained there. They're all NI TIs. You should be able to put a search on it if you're interested. Another thing that, the thing that we can't do as we can't double decide. It means we can't go back and forth between self and tribe, right? The people who, they're not going to freak out. They're not going to freak out and think, okay, I'm not good enough. Okay, I need too much validation. Okay, I need to build my identity. they're not going to get all freaked out on that. They're going to be able to balance back and forth. They're going to prefer one, but they're going to be able to go against it if they want, and it won't be, the tribe won't freak them out. They won't be afraid of the tribe. They won't be afraid of going against other people. Okay, so that's self and tribe. Another thing that OP came along, there's the introverted and the extroverted on all the functions. OP also came along and saw that there is masculine and feminine on your functions. So if one function is masculine, the other one is automatically feminine. Now, what does this mean? This is their definition of masculine and feminine. I know ancient definitions of masculine and feminine differ, right? Masculine in ancient generations is masculine is the seed giver, the excess, the ones who's able to overproduce, and feminine is the gatherer, the one who's able to take this overproduction and refine it. And so this is, but their definition of masculine and feminine is different. They call masculine and feminine modalities as movable and not movable, stubborn and pushover. Okay, so one's going to be stubborn, one's going to be pushover. Masculine is going to be too stubborn, feminine is going to be a pushover. This is also something that I've found that people are able to balance and go against. And this is just something that it does make sense. If you look at the interviews, you'll be able to judge for yourself if it's correct or not. So the nomenclature is the way that you write down. So here you see all this nomenclature here. This is the old nomenclature of MBTI. This is the new nomenclature of OP. So the first two, MF, MM, FF, you'll see those are the modalities. And don't ask me why they did it like this. This is how they decided. This is actually how it's easier to see from the outside, is that your first modality is going to be sensory, wherever your sensory is. So if masculine, even if you're INFJ, you have masculine sensory, you're going to be M, an M INFJ. It doesn't mean your NI is masculine. It means your sensory is masculine. It's always the first. And then the second one is always going to be your extroverted decider. Okay. So this quadrant here and this quadrant here is going to be defined by these two quadrants, the extroverted decider, right? And the sensory, okay? So they're going to be defined by those first letters, okay? Now, what they also found by those first letters is, of the sexual modalities, is learning styles, or, I don't know. I don't know what you call it. But they have tester, kinesthetic, audio, and visual, okay? So if your sensory is masculine, it always means. They also found that it's correlated to memory. You're going to have a better memory if your sensory is masculine, but it's going to be a memory for sensory details. And masculine NI is going to be more of a memory for concepts, which, take it or leave it, it's worked and it hasn't worked like this. But that's how they type. Audio is going to be MF. Visual is going to be FM. Okay, so masculine, feminine is audio, feminine, masculine is visual, and then tester is double feminine, feminine, and then kinesthetic is going to be double masculine, and it's going to be really pushy and feel it. And this is what they found. Again, completely unconfirmed. Look at the interviews. We're investigating all of this stuff. Now, the other thing that they found is the animals. Now, these animals, I know they might want to change the way they're called, and they get really confusing because play and sleep, for example, you have to specify, are you talking about the animal sleep or real sleep, right? Same thing. And this is like the same thing that Jung did. He confused feeling with values and thinking with whatever you call T. This is also a little confusing, the way you call it. So, but here, they're also calling it this way, that play, sleep, blast, consume, and this might change in the future. It might just stay the same because we're all already using these terms. So the quadrants completely line up. Based on your first type is going to be your first animal, and then your next animal has to be adjacent. You can't jump to the opposite side. Okay, and one thing you're going to notice is we're talking a lot about energy dominant or info dominant. Now, info dominant is when you have consume and blast in your top three, or you can also locate it by one of these two being in your last position. Okay, so if you have play last, that means you're automatically info dominant, right? If you have sleep last, you're still info dominant, right? And so then this is energy dominant, okay? And we'll get into what that means really soon. Energy dominant means you're going to be always looking to balance that energy. That's going to be what you're trying to do, always aware of that energy. And when the energy is balanced, you're going to have the information, okay? Balancing that energy is going to be what gives you the information, okay? Consume and blast is balancing the information. When the information is balanced, you're going to be using your energy properly, right? When you're imbalanced on your information, you're not going to be using your energy right. You're going to get tired, okay? And that's the way it's going to look. This is true. Even someone who's energy dominant could try to balance their information, and they'll find that their energy is fine, right? This is just the way the animals work, okay? Last thing, I think we're pretty much done. Yeah, that's the nomenclature. That's everything. I'm trying to think. If I forgot something, I probably did. I'll get it out to you. But yeah, so, oh, no, I lost it. Anyway, have a good one. Sorry about that brain fart right there. And yeah, if you're interested in this type of typology, there's many channels in the community. Everyone that I'm interviewing, not everyone, but a lot of people have their own YouTube channels. They have their own. We promote it properly. We talk about it properly. You should get an idea about what they're doing. And I'm doing PSAs all the time about some interesting tools that are being provided to the community. So check all those out. And yeah, have a good one. Oh, have a good one.